Let's talk about money.
Growing up, you see certain people who, quote unquote, have money. How?
All I knew about money is you got to save half your paycheck. Debt's bad. I felt a lot of nervousness and guilt around money. I remember one night on the couch, it was like a math equation. Should I buy pizza or not?
Graduated with student loan debt. Had to pay $50,000. I wanted to pay it off as soon as possible. In my mind, I could get my life started and just clean slate, no debt, nothing. It really hit me when I got the envelope in the mail that said, this is the amount of money that you owe.
Having money does not mean you know anything about it. Working in a financial industry doesn't mean you know about personal finance.
Farmtown, Ottawa, Toronto, PwC.
Yeah.
At some point, you guys quit.
I come home and I tell Steph, this isn't for me. We were looking into moving to New York.
Thought about what will make me the most money.
If you guys ever decide to have kids and they don't milk cows, I'll be very disappointed.
I spent just over $750 getting my hair done. Yeah, got made fun of a lot. I think just because I was so passive. I was like, I don't want to be the shy kid anymore. I don't like how this feels. I don't like that.
Our regular jobs, our corporate jobs are taking away from our ability to grow this thing that we saw had a ton of opportunities.
And then I came in one day, I'm like, yeah, let's do it. I'll quit next week.
I won't throw anything out.
Oh, no.
Right? In my mind, I make up these scenarios. So it's like,
What if I need this for
what if-
one specific
exactly,
reason at a specific time and I don't have it?
Exactly.
And I'm gonna die if I don't have it.
I got my first credit card right before starting university and I cried.
Oh,
We're
at
at
the
the bank.
bank.
And
Oh,
the bank teller
no.
asks, should we set up with a credit card? And I was like, yeah. And I'm like,
Fantastic.
that was fun. Yay. That was fun.
that was fun.
Honestly, you're a good interviewer.
Yes.
Yeah, you're good at it.
You got in your bag.
You did. Well, it helps answer things because
Yes.
I always say
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of The Most Interesting. I'm super excited for today's episode because I have not one, but two amazing guests. If you live in Toronto or Ontario and you care about your money at all, and you're online and not under a rock, you definitely heard of these two people. Today, I have with me Steph and Den. Welcome.
thanks for
Thank
having
you.
us.
Thank you. We're happy to be here.
Great. Do you guys want to give us a quick intro on yourselves?
Absolutely. Yeah.
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 We'll kick it off.
Yeah, I'll kick it off. So we're Steph and Den.
Yes.
Yeah, we talk about money online. That's the biggest thing to know about us. We've been doing it for a while now, about 5 years, and then full time for about 2.5 years. Live in Toronto. It's kind of our full time gig. That's what we live and what we do all the time.
Yeah. We say our goal is to just educate as many people as we can about money.
Mm-hmm.
So whether it's investing or like money management,
Mhm.
that's kind of the key areas that we talk about.
Mhm.
But yeah, we're excited to be here. And
Great. They're also pretty modest. I would say, in my estimation, they've helped thousands of people save millions of dollars, which is very, very impressive, I would say. And bonus benefit for me this episode, they're actually also friends. So I think this would be that adds more fun to the episode, basically. I spoke about helping people save money, millions, I could say.
yeah.
But that came later. I like to take it back to the very beginning. And I asked this question because I think it helps people understand you guys. What would I need to know about both of you if I just met you for the first time? So what would I need to know about your background,
Yeah.
upbringing and stuff for me to understand you?
That is a good question. I feel like we come from very different backgrounds, and obviously today we'll kind of learn how we got to where we are today, being together. But
Mhm.
I think a big piece for me that's a part of my identity is me being Kenyan, me being an immigrant. I think those are really big pieces that have kind of shaped where I am today.
Mhm.
I was born in Kenya, came to Canada when I was 6. Basically, my parents were looking for just new beginnings for their family.
Mhm.
And yeah, I got here. I was a little boy who was very, very concerned about the weather. I feel like for a lot of people, especially when you're moving to a new country,
Mhm.
and when you're moving to this side of the world, especially,
Mhm.
all you have to kind of go off of is TV.
Mhm.
And I used to watch a lot of I don't know, daytime soap operas with my grandmother.
Mhm.
And they were all from the States. So California.
Okay.
So when my parents told me that we were moving to Canada, my thoughts were it's going to be warm weather,
Palm trees,
trees,
beaches.
Exactly. So when we got here and we arrive in September and the weather's literally getting like colder and colder, it was a big shock anyway.
That's I find that interesting because I think that's like a lot of immigrants share that sort of experience. Going back to like when you were younger, I always find that a good picture into what your upbringing was like was a typical day when you were a kid. What was that like?
It's a good question. A typical day into my life. Wow, as a kid.
Pick any age. Pick your best age.
I feel like you should do two. You should do when you're like 5 and younger because he's given me that day in the life before.
Okay.
And then when you came to Canada.
Yeah. So 5. Okay. Yeah. We'll go 5 and younger. So me, like early days in Kenya, I was the happiest kid in the world. You know, my family, we all lived in the same like area. So we're talking all the cousins that you can imagine, we all lived really close to each other.
It's funny. One of the previous guests mentioned that I feel like we all have core memories of cousins.
Oh yeah,
just like all being in the same place, being like being just rowdy, basically.
Yep. Yeah, like it was good vibes. It was family vibes. It was community vibes. Yeah, I hung around a lot with my grandmother. She used to do a lot of like, you know, farming. So like, you know, in the morning she would, you know, milk the cows, and I was just.
So it wasn't a city setting.
No. So my family lives just outside Nairobi. So we're kind of like the borderline, the border of what's considered the city. We live right at the border, right outside.
Interesting.
So
when you say milking cows, I don't think a lot of people had that experience in their childhood growing up.
Yeah, it was. It's funny because it's kind of something that we share too.
Yeah,
with Steph's upbringing.
Yeah, we'll get to Steph. I feel like we're gonna find parallels, but a lot of also differences.
That's the story of our lives.
Yeah. It was fun. Like you know, my experience in Kenya, even though it was, I only lived there for 6 years of my life, I just had a lot of really wonderful memories, and they were just filled with, once again, just family. I say all the time, like I started drinking tea when I was like 3. You know,
is that safe?
Yeah,
for a kid.
I don't know if it's safe. I definitely burned myself a few times, right? But it was just, you know, I'd wake up, I'd walk all the way down to my grandmother's house, and she would have tea, some bread.
Walk by yourself?
Yeah, by myself.
And safety not an issue.
Safety's not an issue. It's not even a thought. I don't think. Like we all live in the same area. We all know each other. So that was just kind of the way of life. You know?
Interesting. I find that, if anything, I would say you're lucky to remember that.
Yeah.
And because a lot of people, especially like that move here at young ages, just have like very faint memories of like, or no memories at all of growing up. But moving over to you, Steph, the first question of just like, what do I need to know about like earliest days that like would help me make sense of you now?
Totally. I think biggest thing I can think of at a high level of young me is I was so shy growing up, which I feel like it surprises them now.
I believe that now.
Yeah, like I get nervous for things still, but otherwise I wouldn't say I'm shy now. And I always feel like I was an extrovert trapped in like a shy body. So at home, like my parents didn't know me to be shy. Like they knew that I was, but when I was at home, like I'm having fun. I'm the oldest sibling, younger brother. I totally was the oldest. Like my brother was doing all my chores. He was doing all my tasks. I tell him I'd pay him like a nickel, never would. Like he was doing anything I wanted for me.
Yeah.
We were really close growing up too, though. But yeah, otherwise I was like confident in myself, but really shy in public settings. I think it's from growing up in like countryside. My grandparents had a farm, similar.
So a lot of cow milking?
Yeah. Well, you know what? I didn't personally do it, but I was on the farm with them. So tons of like running around in the land.
I just have to say something real quick. If you guys ever decide to have kids and they don't milk cows, I'll be very disappointed.
I don't know if I could see it happening, to be honest, because we're such city people now.
We're pretty like city people.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, that's the thing too. Like I had a very clear sense of who I was, I think, when I was young, but I didn't know how to express it yet. Like I was a shy kid. My family's all very similar, and I'd say I'm the one that's kind of different in a way. Like I always wanted to move to the city. I wanted to see more things. I was always reading books, and like New York was to me, that was the city. I didn't know about Toronto. I knew about New York because it was in all the books.
So you grew up very ambitious.
Yeah, like I
Or
guess
like
I just
silently ambitious.
yeah, like silently. Like I didn't know what it was that I wanted to do, but I knew I wanted to move and see more things. I knew I needed to break the bubble. I knew I was in a bubble, I guess. I didn't know what it was or what it meant, but I knew I was in one.
What age do you remember this, like having this like realization?
It's funny. I have pretty young memories too, similar to Dennis, which is interesting. Some people don't. But I would say pretty young. Like I remember in the 3rd grade, so I was 8. I had already been having all these thoughts for years. And I was very shy at school. So I got made fun of a lot. I think just because I was so passive. So like didn't stand up for myself.
Okay.
And my mom tells me, and I kind of remember that I came home from school one day and I was like, I don't want to be the shy kid anymore. Like I said that
Like
to her
explicitly?
verbatim. Yeah,
Wow.
like age 7 or 8.
This is like a Disney movie.
Well, it was very specific. Well, apparently, because I always knew I didn't have to be, but I just wasn't working on it yet. So I think at age 7 or 8 is when I started working on changing myself into who I wanted to be more and who I felt like I was inside, but wasn't really expressing it. So I think that was a big thing for me. But otherwise, yeah, I was around my family a lot. For me, I only have 4 cousins. They're all much younger than me. So growing up, it was more with adults. I was really close to my parents, my grandparents. We went to their house every single day after school. So they have the farm and we live 2 fields over. So we're really close, but in country terms, really close.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was always around them and just playing a lot of sports, trying to break out of my shy shell.
Interesting. In being shy, like, do you remember any stories from just being a shy kid that you're like, that's a core memory?
Oh yeah, that's a good question. I have a few. One of the early ones was around the other girls at school. So I went to a really small school, being out in the country. We had 14 kids in my grade.
Oh, wow.
Crazy.
Yeah,
In
7 boys, 7 girls.
The grade, not the class, just the grade.
In the grade, every single class was split. So I never was up until grade 8, I was always in a split class. So 1, 2, 2, 3, 3, 4, 4, 5, 5, 6,
Wow.
5, 6, 7, 8, like always split classes because it was so small. So yeah, there was 7 girls, 7 guys, young in age. You know, you kind of only hang out with the girls. There's 7 of us. And I was definitely like the most shy one. So I'm in school and I remember the time, this is I think what prompted me to have that I don't want to be shy anymore. This is why it's a core memory. But I went out to recess. I was a little bit late because I had to talk to my teacher about something. And I told the girls, I'm like, yeah, I'll be out in like 2 minutes. Wait for me. I come outside and I don't see anyone from my class. I'm like, where are they? Like, I see the other grades outside, not them. I'm wandering around. I'm looking for them. They're all hiding over a hill, laughing that I can't like find them. And I was like, oh, I don't like how this feels. I don't like that. So that was one of my like, I don't want to be shy because they weren't even doing it for any reason other than they could because I wasn't standing up for myself and being part of the group.
And it was because you were shy, they probably chose to do that.
100%. Yeah.
Okay.
I feel like that everyone else, you know, I remember them outgoing, playing around with each other. And I was more like, I didn't contribute much because I was shy. That was one of the early ones.
Just finally on, I guess, early days, when did you make that switch? Did it come later in life? Like in terms of just being more intentional about like being outgoing, talking to people? Do you think that came as an adult or like it was more, there was an age you remember that, okay, this is different, Steph? I
think I really started working on it right then because it was slowly. It wasn't like a quick switch. It was like I gradually worked on it. But I always say, I describe my like childhood like this, where I liked middle school more than elementary school. I liked high school more than middle school. I liked university more than high school because every time I was becoming more myself. So everything's always been an elevation up. So it's been like gradual, but
Life's gotten gradually better.
Yeah, it's gone gradually better. I'd say I hit my full like confidence in high school for sure, but it still kept growing after that. Like I gained more independence in school after.
I think that's an amazing just precursor for your life in terms of, seems like your life is always getting better.
Yeah.
So your next 5 years should be better than your last 5 years.
That's the goal.
That's just amazing.
I'm always talking about it like that too, actually.
And then like you just peak by becoming the Prime Minister of Canada at some point.
Is that the top?
Yeah.
Then yeah.
That's like mentally like government. Like that's, I don't know. That's that's what just came to me. So in terms of parallels and differences, what can you, other than cow milking, what can you draw, what parallels can you draw between your childhoods and what differences, the most significant one?
Good question.
That is a good question. I feel like
that's the third good question, just for the record,
we're
right?
keep saying it's good.
Yeah, in case like CNN or anyone's watching.
Interview of the
year. Right.
Like that. Parallels. Yeah, I feel like we share the side where it's like, you growing up in the countryside, me also having that experience prior to like coming to Toronto and having the city experience. I will say though, like Steph talking about her experience with only having 7 kids in her grade. Like
Yeah.
that is
Not yours.
a very, very different reality from anyone who grew up in Toronto or in a big city, right? Like you're just used to having hundreds, if not thousands of kids at your school, right? So
Yeah.
very, very different experience, right?
I always say that I feel like we're, some couples are opposites in every way or very similar. We're both. We have like our core selves are very similar, but then our experiences and what we've grown up around, or
And what
whatever it might be,
shaped us, yeah.
what shaped us very
Very
different.
different,
But somehow our thought process on things have ended up being similar. So I feel like that's the biggest one. Like I talked about growing into being more confident, more independent. He's like, I feel like you were always like that, but we're both have that similarity.
Yeah. I
Like
mean,
we have a vision that we work towards.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like I was more so forced to be more confident in a way. Like,
Is that just to confirm? Is that like being the first kid of an immigrant family?
oh,
Mhm.
100%.
Is that just like you just have to play that role as like almost like a second dad?
Oh yeah. Like you,
Yeah.
my dad used to tell me every day, you are a reflection of me when I'm not there. Right. So what that means is, I feel like we've all heard it, like setting a good example. Right. I tell my brother all the time, like I walk so he can run. Like
He rolls his eyes.
the funny things that he's doing now, that he's getting to do now, that my parents let him do.
Yeah.
I was like, it would have been crazy if I had done the stuff that he's doing now.
Do you know that Drake meme from when the Raptors won the championship, where it's like, look at this. This wasn't like before. This was us. Like before this, there was none of this, right? Before us, there was none of this. That's how you felt like about.
That's exactly how.
Yeah.
Exactly how I felt.
But I would love to like maybe talk a bit more, maybe short and just in the interest of time, like
Yeah.
just the pressures of being a first kid in an immigrant family, because I think there's so many people that will be able to relate to a lot of those pressures. So I don't know if you could talk a little bit about those, both the seen and the unseen.
I feel like growing up, the expectation is for you to almost be perfect in a way, right? There's this idea of perfection, and especially when you're growing up in an immigrant family where your parents are they're working a lot and they're not necessarily able to be around as much as they would like. There's a short fuse too for your parents, right? Like the expectation isn't for you to be messing around when they're
They have
there.
enough to worry about.
Exactly. So yeah,
It's a big reason you chose the like career path you did initially too. Like you weren't thinking about what you like and whatever. You thought about what will make me the most money. He's told me that so many times.
And what will my parents be the most proud of? I spoke to someone I know, also like a firstborn immigrant.
Okay.
And he also, I think, pursued a career in banking. And he's been in banking for several years, right?
Yeah.
I think he finally got therapy. And then he realized like the only reason he was in banking was because his dad was in banking.
Yeah.
And like, the conversations with his dad, that positive reinforcement, like the pride that he saw in his dad's eyes, like everything was just around like his dad being happy or his parents being happy, right? And he just realized that like I never wanted to really do this, right? So I think that's what you're alluding to.
Yeah, and I feel like it kind of ties into the lack of creativity, or like you not being able to dive into the parts of you that are creative, right? For me, my mindset was I need to get a good job. I need to, quote unquote good job. I need to get a job that makes good money. I need to be on a path that, corporate wise is going to have the most amount of options for me as possible. And that was my mindset. So it's kind of funny because now obviously being a full-time creative, like I'm sure you can imagine that initial conversation.
That was my next question. What? You know what? We'll leave that for later. I have some more questions that tie into that. How did you guys meet?
Good question too. So we went to school at the same University of Ottawa.
Repping.
Yeah. Well, it's funny too because even the fact that we both went to that school, I do feel like we were meant to meet because I always say this. Because so for me, I chose the University of Ottawa because I wanted to go to a bigger city. Everyone in Ottawa laughs at that because Ottawa's not the biggest of cities.
Life is relative, right?
Yeah, but from the smaller cities, Ottawa was big for me. And so I only applied to Carleton and University of Ottawa. I wanted to go to Ottawa, figured out which school once I got into both. And I liked it there at the time because it was, again, bigger city for me, new experiences. Also, it was 6 hours away from my parents. And I talked to them all the time. I loved being close to my parents, but I felt like I needed the physical independence and being far to not rely on them and grow in my shell a bit. So that's why I chose it. His is the opposite, kind of like you were going to a smaller place.
Yeah, I guess I was going to a smaller place coming from the GTA. But for me, it was more so just, leaving home, gaining some independence. And
Were you trying to get as far away from home as possible?
You weren't, I don't think.
I wasn't trying to get as far away as possible. It's just, I got into the University of Ottawa and then I ended up there.
It just made the most sense. Like it was no real specific.
There wasn't like any underlying thing that made me go there. It just, I ended up being there and then we met.
We met at the end of right before our last year.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So he's a year ahead of me, but he was doing co-ops.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's why we never met in class or anything. Although we might not have anyway. It's a pretty big school.
I was going in my 5th year. She was going into her 4th.
Going into my 4th.
Were you guys in the same like major?
No. So we both were doing Bachelor of Commerce degrees, but I was in Human Resources, Finance and Accounting.
Finance and Accounting, yeah.
Yeah. But we met in our last summer because we worked at the same place. And we both happened to work at this company. It was cool. They had probably one of the biggest like student employers in Ottawa. And they had a like summer student program. There was 30 of us at least, I think. It was a pretty big group around there. And I was the only HR student. So I was the one who set up like the student meetups. Like we would go drinks after work or hang out or do different like events and stuff like that.
Like a true HR person.
Yes. And I was like so excited. This is my first HR specific job. I loved working there. He loved working it too. We kind of bonded over like our enjoyment of our first good jobs in our fields. And we were excited about that.
Yeah. Like this is a place that I had wanted to work like my entire time that I was at school.
Do you guys mind sharing the company?
Yeah. Brookfield Renewable.
Yeah.
Brookfield and...
Brookfield Renewable. So it's it's owned by Brookfield Asset Management.
Okay.
So if you're familiar with like BlackRock or the big asset managers, this is one of them.
Okay.
Yeah.
But it's just the renewable energy arm, which is like the biggest sector, I guess, for the location we were.
Okay.
Yeah. It was a cool company too. Like this is where I learned. I remember, so I got the interview for it.
She loved the office. Loved the office.
I got the interview for it and I'm like, yeah, whatever. I need a summer job. I do the interview. It's
Wow.
like a building. It's one of the only buildings I feel like in Ottawa that looks like a Toronto office. Like it's really nice. It was newly renovated. It was really cool. I called my parents the second I got out. I'm like, I have to get the job now. Like I need to work here. I see it.
I want to point out the contrast between her getting the interview and being like, whatever. Me, I had like done internships where I had gone to Nova Scotia. Gone to different places in order to try and get this job.
So you knew before the interview you wanted to get the job. I didn't know until I was done the interview. I was like,
you just like rolled out of bed. Just rolled out of bed and like got the job basically.
Well, it was funny too because I just happened, like I didn't look for this company. I had gotten recommended it by, I was in the HR club at my school, so recommended by someone there. So it did kind of like fall into place. That's another reason it's funny, there are different parallels into getting it. But then, we got the job and then we started hanging out with the students. And then the first time we actually lived, our student houses were pretty close together. So, and this is also in Gatineau, Quebec, if anyone who knows like the Ottawa area. So it was kind of like a 45-minute ride home and we just talked the whole time. I'm pretty sure I talked the whole time.
She talked a lot.
Like I talked a lot. And then after that, we just kept hanging out because we took the same bus to work, stuff like that. And it just came over time.
Like I think I want to point out that on our way home, Steph would talk so much to the point where I was like, wow, like she doesn't stop talking. And to the point where like I start laughing mid-conversation just because I was like, wow, she really just keeps going.
Oh my God.
It's actually so funny though, because to me, I'm like, wow, he really likes me. Like I'm talking and he's like smiling and laughing. He's not saying much. Like he must just be really into me. Meanwhile, he's like, sure, like you like me, but you're like, wow,
like he's a great listener.
She can go.
I did. Yeah. I can just keep going. Like it doesn't stop.
Oh man, that's so good. I want to get like quickly POVs, just POVs of like that process and like starting to date like each person's POV sort of thing.
Good. Okay, so I feel like it was nice because we met at the very beginning of the summer that we were working at this company, which helped because we just like had all this time to hang out. I feel like that was a really fun summer. We remember it that way.
Really fun summer.
And we were in a mix. Like it was our last year of school, so we're having fun. We're seeing friends.
It's very euphoric, basically.
Yeah, exactly. Like one of those core times of life. But at the same time, we were both pretty like into our jobs, trying hard at work. We were picturing what we were going to do after school. He told me pretty quickly when we met that he was going to be moving back to Toronto. So I was like, okay, I can move to Toronto. Like we're thinking about all that type of stuff. But yeah, it was just a fun time. Like we just hung out a lot. Like all the time.
And in terms of getting serious, so that's the POV we actually want. Like how did you go from just two people working at the same place, taking the same bus home to like, okay, like we're gonna do this and then moving to Toronto together? How did that come about?
Yeah.
We kind of understood that we were both we both thought similarly about things. Even going back to our first initial conversations about money and like how much she made versus how much I made. So I think I was getting paid more.
Yeah. Good point. Because we were having like fun when we first hung out too, but we also were having conversations like that. Like an early conversation we had. Like I think I'm just pretty open person, and you also are too. But you're specifically focused on the money and how career was going. So when I asked him like, "How much money do you make?" He's like, "Oh, okay, sure, we'll talk about that." And then we had full on conversations. Yeah, you were getting paid more based on your work experience and the function you were in, which was good. Like learning for me too.
Yeah. I think it's just we were super transparent, and from my perspective, I had never talked to anyone where like there was that level of transparency, and where like the things that we talked about, even though we didn't necessarily share the same experience, even interest wise, I want to say, like even when we're talking about like real estate in the beginning, I was really interested in like learning about real estate. We're learning about this, learning about that. Steph was like, "Oh, like that's really cool." Like she was really she was into it, you know?
Yeah, I think that's a good point actually that I hadn't really thought about before. But I think for me, like I always like interacting with people who I have a similar like base interest with, but can like elevate me in my thought process. So when I met him and he's pretty serious for a guy. Like you're like 21 at the time. He is. He's talking about real estate,
like,
jobs he wants to get, all these things.
You're like, whose dad is this?
Yeah. Well, I was like, I like this. Like I'm interested in that topic. Don't know a lot. Like I could learn more about that. So I feel like that was a big baseline. But I feel like it was just a gradual transition. Like now summers feel so fast. At the time it felt long.
Really long.
It just made sense. There wasn't like a specific moment, I don't think. We just were always hanging out and it got more serious. I do remember one time though, we were doing dishes together at my place at the like end of August that summer. And my roommate's like friend came in who didn't know us. And she was like, "Oh, so how long have you guys been dating?" Because they realized we looked so comfortable with each other. We're like, like a few weeks. And they're like, "Oh." So we're pretty like serious off the bat, I guess. Yeah.
That's good to know. After school, what was that like? What happened next?
Yeah. So eventually we finished school. We decided that we're moving to Toronto. For me, I felt like I had honestly outgrown Ottawa. I feel like, especially when you're in the accounting and finance stream, in Ottawa, if you're not really working for the government, there's only a very few number of like private sector companies that you can work for. So when we're thinking about opportunities, it just made sense to go to the next big city. It just so happened that my family's also, both of our families are really close to Toronto, right? So if we're talking career opportunities, if we're talking just building relationships with different people, like I feel like we wouldn't have met if we'd stayed in Ottawa, right?
Yeah.
So
true.
Yeah, it just felt like a really nice shift. Now I will say that Steph had a much
easier transition
than I did.
Which is
kind of funny, actually.
Yeah, it's funny. Well, it was based on like just getting a job at the right time, basically. And also, I would say I'm a pretty like, even if I have a bigger vision for myself, I'm pretty positive in the moment. Whereas if he's not in the position that's already what he wants, it's going to be like, concern. So like I got a job, luckily, before I finished exams in Ottawa, which is great.
Where was this?
A small recruitment firm. I got it off of Indeed, random applying. I actually took a bus. During exam season, I took a bus to Toronto, did my interview, bus back in the same day. Like I just wanted to make sure I had something locked down. But yeah, small recruitment firm, only 10 people there. Like not what I wanted to do forever, but I was like, I got a job in Toronto. This is exciting.
Especially if you give the context of where you were coming from. Because Ottawa was already a big step for you.
It was already a big step for me.
And then you get a job in Toronto. And you're like, oh my God, life is crazy.
Yeah, I was like, I don't care where it is yet. And it turned out it was actually like a fun first environment. Like recruitment firm is cool because, so in HR, like it's in the talent acquisition space. But I got to interview a lot of people and really work on my like personal skills. Got to meet a lot of people, different industries. So that was really cool for me, actually. I just knew I didn't want to get stuck in doing it forever. But for at least the first few months, I was happy with that. And my grandpa actually has a place in Toronto. So he'd like come back and forth to the city part-time. So I stayed with him.
Oh, wow.
So funny, though. His place doesn't even have Wi-Fi. Like it was like a grandpa's place.
So it was basically like the farm again, basically.
Kind of, yeah.
Just
in the city.
Yeah.
But it worked out great because I would take the go train into the city on Mondays. I would work. I'd take the subway down to my grandpa's, stay with him during the week, then go back to my parents on the weekends. So that was my first like 2 months.
So we both moved back into our parents
for
a few months and then found a place and then started living together.
And how long did it take you to get your gig?
Yeah, so I knew I had the experience. It was just a matter of getting the right fit.
He also
for
got
job.
multiple job offers that he just wasn't taking because they weren't the right
Yeah.
job.
Really?
They didn't feel right. They were just in environments where, I don't know, like when I was looking at future me, like 10 years from now, like was this going to be an environment where I would hit some of these goals that I wanted to hit?
I just want to highlight that that's not common in terms of two things. Firstly, getting out of school
Yeah.
and waiting to get a job.
Yeah.
In terms of like not just waiting, like I'm not getting offers, but like getting offers
Yeah.
and not taking them. That's the first thing. Maybe luckily for you, you had like, you know, your parents' space to fall back on, but I just want to highlight that that's not a normal thing. And the second part is having a 10-year vision
Yeah.
for yourself right out of school. Now it's maybe more common, but I don't think that's a normal thing to just have as like a 20. How old were you at that time?
I was what,
22, I guess, then, yeah.
22?
Yeah, exactly, right? Especially if people like offering you money, that like offers are like money, right? Like,
Yeah.
and you're like, okay, no. I think that's pretty cool. So eventually you get a job at.
So eventually I get a job at TD.
Okay.
So TD Securities.
Mhm.
And I start this job, you know, kind of how I got it was through just networking.
Mhm.
So I start this job. It's not really in the role that I would ideally like, but at least it's within the TD Securities branch or brand division. Let's say division.
Yeah.
And my mentality was, okay, cool. Like I'll stay here for a little bit, see how things are going, and then make my moves while I'm internally in the organization. Literally the first week, like I don't know if it was the first day.
It was the first day.
I come home and I tell Steph, this isn't for me.
I was like, oh no.
This isn't for me.
Wow. What was it? Quickly. What was the?
It was the vibe of the team. It was just an older team. So things just moved. I knew things were going to move a lot slower. The type of work that I was doing was not what we had discussed during the interview process. So I just knew that I wasn't going to be building the skills that I wanted to do. And also, like, you're young. You're 20, 21, 22 years old. Like, you want to be in an environment that's like younger. That
makes you feel alive. Basically,
Exactly. Like, even if I'm going to be working more, like, I'm okay with it as long as
you feel good.
I feel good. I'm learning, right? Learning is really key, especially earlier on in your career. So, yeah, I did that for 3 months.
Yeah, not that long.
So a month in, I started looking for other jobs.
Yeah.
as most people do.
Yeah. And then by the third month, I got a job at Deloitte, and then started my my career then with the under the audit and assurance.
And did that feel like, again, if we link it back to like the firstborn immigrant son, did Deloitte feel like top-ish of the mountain for you? Like especially at your age, you felt like I'm doing well.
Yeah. I'd say I felt like I was doing well. Like I told my parents I was working at Deloitte. Or I got the job at Deloitte, and they were like, "Wow, like I can't wait to tell my friends."
as immigrant parents do, right? Yeah. Yep.
You know, so
and just so fast forwarding a little bit, both of you are working.
Yeah.
So Steph, the small recruiting firm, is that where you worked until YouTube took off?
No, so this is a interesting mix too of I feel like us pushing each other in different ways too. So Dennis, I was liking my job.
Okay.
But I did know I wanted to work in a bigger team. Like I said before, I was like bigger cities, bigger teams, more people. Like I didn't like the small offices much. I liked my team, but not the size. So when he got his job at Deloitte, I'm like, oh, time for me to find a new job. Like I need to go. So it was cool though, because I actually at the time I was on a secondment to a big marketing agency because we did a lot of recruiting for marketing agencies. So Cassette, which is one of the bigger agencies in the city, I was working there 3 days a week. So I was in their office, which was cool. But instead of focusing on it being cool, I feel like I was in I need to get a job mode too. So I was interviewing just for like any larger company. And I ended up at PwC, which is another one of the big four firms too. So similar environment.
Well, you guys like Thanos just collecting like stones. Just like Deloitte, PwC, like we're gonna get all the big four.
It was funny because I feel like at the time he knew more about the big four and the groups too. And I was like, oh, I'm gonna get a job at PwC. He's like, oh, funny. And I'm like, oh yeah, I guess they are similar. But different teams because I was in HR still. But it was cool also because it wasn't like a classic HR. I was in the strategy and operations team for the recruitment sector. So I wasn't recruiting anymore or front-facing, external-facing. Instead, I was working on data analytics stuff and behind-the-scenes project, which was really cool because I always knew at this time I had no thoughts of not working in this career path. Like I didn't know we would switch things up, which we'll talk about after. But I wanted to really grow to the top of the HR function. I wanted to be director, VP. Like that was always my goal since pretty early on. And I knew it would be hard to do that being in like the soft skills side of things. So I wanted the data experience and being in the strategy side. So that was really cool. And I had awesome managers at that time too. So I knew I'd have room to grow.
Yeah.
So it was, that was fun for me too. It's crazy because I only worked in the small recruiting firm for probably 5 months as well, maybe 6 until I switched.
Yeah.
So you just, again, big picture, farm town, Ottawa, Toronto, PwC.
Yeah.
That's a so
Elevated.
little Steph looking at PwC Steph.
Yeah.
What is she thinking?
So excited. She's like, yes, like we broke out of the bubble I was talking about before. Again, when I was young, I only knew of like New York. So I pictured tall office building in New York, but tall office building in Toronto, same thing. You know, I just didn't know this was here.
I always call Toronto baby New York anyways.
Yeah.
So I think it does fit. So both of you's final jobs were at Deloitte and PwC.
Yeah.
At some point you guys quit, right? Talk me through that process of quitting a job, dream job, you could say, for both of you. And that will lead us into like what we want to talk about. But talk me through that process of like quitting. What was that decision like? What was the process like? Emotionally, how did you feel? What was that like? Talk to me about it.
Yeah, well, we had been building an audience and a community for a number of years before we even got to the point where we were like, maybe we should quit, you know? So things were going really well on the YouTube side. We were now YouTube creators. And we hit this inflection point where all of a sudden our regular jobs, our corporate jobs are taking away from our ability to grow this thing that we saw had a ton of opportunities in it, you know?
Well, it's another, going back a little bit too, like one of the things that's similar about us is we both had our like, business career thought process, but we also both liked creative stuff.
We did.
Slightly different ways, but I always watched YouTube. I loved it. I started my YouTube channel so many times in my head, but never did it. When I was growing up, he was always filming and like, vlogging things on his own, not to even post anywhere, but just for himself.
Or even pre-YouTube, you were already like documenting things.
Yeah, like he was the video person. Like you were documenting.
So when we were in school, I basically used to like volunteer my time with different clubs and stuff, and I would do like videography or photography, like I did.
Oh, even my club at school,
yeah. When she was president for her club at school, I did the photos for their club,
and filmed events.
Yeah, me and my friend we kind of got hooked on YouTube during the like travel wave of like 2015 to 2016. And it was also around the same time that people like Casey Neistat were doing like daily vlogs. And to me, it was just cool. Like me and Steph have always been infatuated with the idea of storytelling and how that's, to me, like it's one of the coolest skills ever. And I always say I love comedians. I love their ability to like take you from point A to point B and just like, you know, everything that they'll bring you along the way.
Vividly too.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So yeah, I feel like doing that and, you know, watching content like that just made me want to vlog and try it out. So I started trying it out, and then
and I was like creative stuff too. So like our first videos we filmed were just like fun ones. Like we filmed like coffee shops in the city and different little things like that.
Nice.
But at the same time, we have that part of us that likes to talk about money and career stuff. So we decided to do videos instead. So that's the creative piece, but talk about like finances and career, salary, all that type of stuff. So yeah, that's how we kicked off. And then you're right. It was growing behind the scenes. And then eventually, especially at this point, COVID's happened. We're working from home. Being in the jobs aren't as exciting at the time, right?
Yeah.
And we have this really exciting thing on the side that we're building. So that was the biggest piece. He did suggest quitting first, though. I will say that. I said before, like I was always like, even when he first suggested quitting, I was like, oh, but I like my job. Like, I don't know. Like this is where also you get your self-worth sometimes, right? Like if I feel good at work, if I'm getting praise, all those things, I'm like, that's going to have to come from ourselves now. It's a big mental switch. But I'm also a pretty decisive person. So I thought about it for like a month. And then I came to him one day. I'm like, yeah, let's do it. Like, I'll quit next week. Like when I decided I was going to. And I did. I quit before him because I was just ready to do it. I couldn't sit on it for too long. Yeah.
That's pretty cool. So let's go to a parallel universe for a bit.
Okay.
10 years later from when you quit, you you don't quit. There's no side gig, nothing.
Yeah.
What does that look like for you guys?
Oh wow, that's a.
Well, I can.
Yeah.
You want me to start? I can tell you mine. I
start.
feel like that's actually really interesting because we're about 3 years into that now. So 7 years from now, I had the vision, right? Like for me, I don't know if I would have been at the same company, but I would have been in one of the tall, big offices in Toronto, and ideally, already definitely at like director level. Like that would have been my goal. Like I wanted to push as fast as I could up like that ladder, I guess, and then allowing myself to on the side do different fun things. Like I would have been still doing something fun. I don't know what it would have been, even if it was like real estate or something like that we'd be doing. But that's what I pictured. That's what I would have said.
Yeah. And I feel like that pretty much aligns with me. Like I pictured myself. Well, actually,
I was gonna say.
I will say, right before we made the decision to quit our jobs, we were looking into moving to New York. So I was looking for jobs in New York.
So I would have just switched there too.
Yeah. I was looking for jobs in like corporate development space. So yeah, I guess just a leader within that space and doing some fun stuff on the side, get dabbling into like real estate like I always envisioned.
Well, that's the thing too, is I feel like we both had clear visions of what life looked like, which is part of why we wanted to quit. Because we're like, okay, we could stay on these paths that we know exactly what they'll look like. You never know with life. Things could happen and come. But we knew exactly what we wanted, and it would have just been checking the boxes and I can't happen. We're like, but this path, we have no clue what's going to happen. It's kind of more fun in this way.
I was going to say, it's the same with working at somewhere like Deloitte or PwC, right? Like, what the path is. It's laid out for you, right? Every performance review, you're supposed to be checking these boxes off, performing at the next level. And eventually the goal is to become a partner and, eventually get to there. And like the pathway is just laid out for you. This is something that's like exciting. It's like,
there's no path.
We don't know, right? Theoretically, it could all fail.
Right. It's all on your own terms also, which I probably plays a very, very key role.
Yeah.
Let's talk about money.
Yeah.
What are your
about money?
I was about to say, it seems like that's obviously something you guys enjoy. What are your relationships with money like, individually and like collectively? Who's more conservative? Who's more like lavish? Who's more, tight-fisted? Who's more emotional about it?
Growing up for me, my family talked about money, but like at the surface, like all I knew about money is you got to save half your paycheck. Debt's bad. What was good about that is it made me make sure I saved. I got my first job at a fairly young age, saved half my paychecks, all of that. But I didn't get into the deepness about money. I didn't know what my parents were making, how much our house cost, like any of that stuff. I was so blind to it. So I felt a lot of like nervousness and guilt around money because I didn't know what was going on with it. And then also like fear. Like I was afraid of it. I got my first credit card right before starting university and I cried. So I was like, this means like, I don't know. I don't even know what it means. it feels bad.
You're like holding, you're like, oh my God.
Like I'm gonna like, I don't even know. Like I cried and my mom was like, why are you crying? And I'm like, you haven't told me what this is. Like, I don't know. Like, this is scary to me. So I feel like that was how I was. And then my independence in university helped me with money, too. I just want
to point out, like, I can imagine your mom walking into a room and you have a credit card and you're crying at the credit card. Like, I'm just trying to see what's going through her head.
We're at the bank. We're at the bank. And the bank teller asks, like, should we set her up with a credit card? And mom's like, yeah. And I'm like, and then we're in the room, like, where they're giving it to me. And I start to cry. And I'm, like, embarrassed. And I'm like, oh, my gosh. But I feel like that is a good, like, example of where analogy. I was at. Like, real life. Right? Yeah. Like I just didn't know much, but I knew it was to be like it could be dangerous, I guess. Like could be to be scared.
Most people do the crying after a few like months of having the credit card.
I was more like
she's like pre-crying.
Well, and this is an example too. Like I knew that I didn't know enough and I wanted to know more, but I didn't know what I needed to know about money. So that was kind of always my search. But I remember the first time I went to the bank by myself and like took money out. I'm like, like I'm doing
like a grown woman.
Yes, like I'm getting
like victory.
Yes, but actually too. So then when we graduated, I knew I was in a good position with no student debt, which not everyone's in. Yeah. But I felt the pressure to do the right things with that opportunity, I guess. So he can attest that I felt guilty spending money. And at first I was spending. I didn't have a budget yet. I was just like living the new adult in Toronto life. Yeah. But I was every purchase I made, like I remember one night on the couch, it was like a math equation. Should I buy pizza or not? Like, is it okay to spend money on this? Like, I was really thinking about it.
Yeah.
And he's like,
Yeah.
and he told me to make a budget. And then that I feel like really started to change my life
That
with
is
money.
so good.
Yeah.
That
True.
is so good.
And then you're on the opposite side.
For me, I'm on the opposite side. So for me, I grew up with like almost like a scarcity mindset where it literally bleeds into our relationship today in a way, because
that's normal.
I won't throw anything out.
Oh, no.
Right? I wanna
throw everything
get the
out.
very last drop of soap of whatever. Like, don't throw it out. My my closet, we just started cleaning it out like this past couple months.
Yes.
Because I have things that
I've never
had
seen
when I
him
was
wear.
in like 10th grade.
Yeah.
You know?
Wow.
Like I've never worn them, but it's like
They're not going anywhere.
what if in my mind I make up these scenarios so it's like,
what if I need this for one specific reason at a specific time and I don't have it?
Exactly.
And I'm gonna die if I don't have it. You know?
That is the energy. Yeah.
Yeah. So I grew up with a scarcity mindset. Obviously, my family and us moving here, we kind of started from like ground zero, right?
And you saw that firsthand as the first kid, right?
Exactly. So, you know, it's just some things are hard to let go of. It's hard to shake off. But at the same time, I've always felt this need to make sure that I was doing everything like 100% the way it needs to be done.
To a T, yeah.
So even my money journey, right? Like, graduated with student loan debt, had to pay $50,000. I wanted to pay it off as soon as possible so that in my mind, I could get my life started and just
life starts after debt.
Clean slate.
Yeah.
You know, no debt, nothing. And even if I think about investing, when I was starting to invest, I felt like I needed to like have this super elaborate, like, you know, vision and like just know everything.
Yeah.
Which is just it's not the reality, and it shouldn't be the expectation for anyone. You know?
Yeah.
So
that was me the first time I heard adjusted EBITDA. I didn't even know. I was like, what do I need to like, you know, does this affect my paycheck? Like, you know, I understand that. I have a quote here. It says, people are stressed about money, they're lost, they're overwhelmed, they feel completely out of control of their financial future. Do you know who that quote is by?
Us?
Yes, correct.
Is it? Wow.
Good job.
Like that.
Yeah.
Good job, Steph.
Like, I think I might have wrote that down.
1 point to Steph.
Like, I think I wrote that.
Why do you guys think money is an uncomfortable topic for people?
Oh.
Why do some run towards money and some run away from money? I know, as you've alluded to, probably like 90% comes from childhood.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I want to hear your take on it.
I was going to say so many things I think in life go back to childhood. Money being one of them, because it's a big... So we've heard people say before, they're not a money person. And what they mean by that is just, I'm not interested. I don't think about money, all this. Money impacts you every moment of every day.
Yep.
Having it or not having it, what you buy or don't buy, what you do or don't do. It's all based on money. It's in the background of every single thing, every moment. So same with when you're growing up, things your parents did or didn't do, all of that's based on money. So whether you ever had to think about it or you didn't have to, it was there. And that's kind of our experiences. You were thinking about money, I wasn't, but both led to like different outcomes.
Yeah.
So, and that's the thing. And it's not talked about. It's not transparent. Most people don't come from families who talk openly about money, the positives or the negative. And then you don't talk about it with your friends. And then the industry, whatever that even means, the financial industry, like they don't want you to talk about money because they want you to be confused so they can profit off it. And then at work, your company doesn't want you to talk about salaries because then you'll profit off it instead of them. So it's in everyone's best interest
to talk about.
Yeah, to talk about it. And then on the other side, to not talk about it. So
yeah. I agree wholeheartedly. I feel like there's that other quote where I don't know who it is.
Which one?
It ends with like not having money is, you know, or not.
I'm trying to pick up what you're putting down.
Talking about money and, you know, discussing how to get money is hard, but like,
okay,
it's really
you gotta
hard
like choose your heart, basically. Yeah.
Yes, people say that they don't want to budget, for example, or know what's going on with their money because it's stressful. You're more stressed because you don't know what's going on. It's actually really freeing to know what's going on and feel confident. Like that's one of the things we say the most is that having knowledge about money is empowering. It builds your confidence. Like that's what we want to do for people more than anything else.
Absolutely,
is make them feel in control because. Yeah, you're just.
I also think that goes like top to bottom. Sometimes I think of like maybe money management like produce in terms of you just leave it in a room and it's just gonna rot. Like you don't pay attention, or even like you could liken it to a plant, right?
Mhm.
You don't pay attention every day. Like
Not watering.
you don't have to like uproot the plant every day and like change the
Yeah.
the pot, but
Yes.
just like a little spray here, little spray there, like maintenance of your like
Yeah.
money. Because if you don't, it's gonna go down quick. And like I say, top to bottom, you hear the average person credit card debt, but whatever it is, like there's always a lot of average people struggle with money, right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Then when you go up to like the richest people, also like celebrities or like athletes,
Yeah.
you also hear like horror stories of
They
people
struggle
just not
too.
like paying attention to money, right? So it's independent of like who you are.
Such a good point, because having money doesn't mean you're good with money. And
Right.
people often look to the people who have it
Have money.
Mhm.
to teach them how to do it.
Mm.
They don't know either. They do not know. Having money does not mean you know anything about it.
Mm.
It's
Yeah.
you choosing to know about it is why you know. But also working in a financial industry doesn't mean you know about personal
Mhm.
finances. Like
this is
we have
something
worked-
that I learned firsthand. Right?
Yeah.
Like working in the finance and accounting world, right? You might think that your friend who is an accountant knows about personal finance. You might think that your friend who is an investment banker knows about personal
Mhm.
finance. The reality is that none of us,
unless
unless
you look to know.
unless somehow the schooling system has changed, which it
Mm.
hasn't,
Mhm.
and they're teaching personal finance in high school,
Mhm.
right? The reality is that none of us know some of these basic
Mm.
things,
Mm.
Mhm.
right?
That is true. You mentioned something about like people don't talk about money, like in some families don't talk about money at all and
Yeah.
stuff like that. I do feel like everyone's again money picture comes from their childhood, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like for example, in my case, growing up, my dad always paid for comfort,
Mm.
right? So if he could pay for something to be quicker, faster, less stressful, he would,
Yeah.
right? And I found that like that's who I have become also.
Interesting.
And with my
See.
partner, sometimes she's like, let's just do this. I'm like, well, we'll pay someone to do that, right?
Yeah.
And it's not even that expensive, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
But for her, it might be about the experience. It might be about like, just doing it together or something like that. And I'm like, over time, you have to like change that, right? How do you guys think people could go from how they're like programmed as kids to like
Mhm.
being adults and actually being involved with their money?
Well, I feel like you have to start off by identifying these things,
Mhm.
right? And I feel like, especially in relationships,
Mhm.
we speak to that. Like, there's things that come out that really are related to something else,
Yeah.
Mhm.
right? Like
Good.
you not wanting to throw the soap bottle out because it's not completely done. Like that.
It's not just to be annoying.
There's a
Yes.
deeper thing.
That's a
there,
therapy session.
right?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
You know, like there's a
Mhm.
deeper thing there.
Well, it's a good point too, because people think that getting on their money journey, there's some specific actionable first step. The first step really is identifying what you don't think you have thoughts about money. You do.
Mhm.
Figure out what they are. Go
100%.
back in your childhood, picture what your parents just like offhand poured into you without even meaning to.
Mhm.
Think about how that translates to where you are now. And then, if you are in a relationship, you're for sure going to have different experiences, even if it's subtly, like it's
Yeah.
not that major. So then identify what your partner's is like. And then you have to go from there and figure out the steps that work for you. It doesn't mean everything you've learned is bad either. It's just contextualizing it and being aware of it and not letting it be a background character.
I think figuring out what works for you that's like one of the key parts of it. Do you guys have any bad financial decisions you've made that you want people to learn from, or you just wanna like share?
That's funny. Do you have anything?
I mean, that's a tough question.
Yeah. I was going to say, on Dennis's end, he's been, for as long as I've known you at least, you have been pretty like tight with money, pretty on it. He really did. Like he paid off his debt in 2.5 years. And this is $50,000 of debt. Like it's a lot of money. You weren't spending on too much. That was too crazy.
I also wasn't making that much money either. So
Yeah.
it's like
For the context of that.
the vast majority of my budget was going towards the debt.
Yeah. And then on my end, like nothing super major, but I was going to say, I think the bigger thing is earlier on, it's even maybe for you, it's even not spending on certain things. For example, like it's more the decision of being overly stressed about certain things, not letting your mindset feel calm about money until you were done with your debt. For me, like, it's a good question. One of my biggest purchases that we made was buying a couch. And this is right when we quit our jobs, right? But I was so like dead set on getting a nice couch. We had this like old couch. It was in our videos. I'm pretty good at like not justifying purchases. You want it to be like something you've decided on. But yeah, we spent like thousands of dollars on the couch. And Dennis is like, we don't need to spend on this. I'm like, I'm going to do it no matter what. And I do love our couch, and it is in our videos.
Okay.
But I think it was learning to like justify. You shouldn't be justifying purchases. You're either okay with it or you're not. And I feel like that was a big like lesson for me at that point.
Yeah.
I just want to say that you guys saying your worst financial decision is a couch is shaming a lot of people, including me.
Yeah.
Because if a lot of people go to their worst financial decision, I don't think a couch even cracks the top 10.
I know. Well, it's funny too, because that's the thing. Like we actually genuinely don't have that many like crazy money things. Like we've been pretty on top of it. And also quitting our jobs, like we paid ourselves out a low salary for the first few years. So we were pretty good at sticking to our budget because we had to. We made that choice. But it's funny because we sometimes share videos on like what I spent in a month, and people have this mindset. We get some funny comments because they think I spend, specifically me, because we share more about my spending.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, I guess your worst purchase would be your haircut.
Yes, I was gonna say this, but I don't view it that way because I budgeted in.
Yeah.
So we recently did a video and I shared that I spent just over $750 getting my hair done. Yeah. And so people would say that that's a bad decision. Everyone's like, that's insanely expensive. Like the comments were very funny.
Crazy.
Yeah, which I knew they would be, right? Like we're partially, it was truly an expense, but also I shared it because I knew people would have interesting opinions on it.
Yeah.
But for me, I budgeted for that. I only get my hair done once a year. I don't get my nails done. I don't do anything else. So my beauty spending is, it's as much as it's $750 something in 1 month, it's also $750 for the year.
If you amortize it every month, some people probably spend more.
There you go.
Per month, right?
Yeah, and I responded to someone's comment, and I was saying how I truly understand that you seeing this and having no context on me, it looks like you make an assumption that I did this, that I'm just crazy, right? That
Which
I'm
is social media.
Yes.
That's like one of the pillars of social media.
It's exactly the pillar. And then some people want that, right? You want people to assume these things because it gives you the engagement, which is true. But I told them that. I'm like, I understand, but for me, it's not a bad purchase because I budgeted it in and it made sense for me. But yeah.
Yes. Let's talk about Den's 50K student debt. Personally, I'm also like an immigrant kid, now Canadian, but I finished school without debt, which is always one of my the things I'm most thankful for from my parents. Just because I have friends that finish with debt, I know what it's like mentally for those people. It's an elephant in the room. It's a weight on your back. It's just everything that mentally you don't want. It just seems like in the background all the time.
Yep.
Yeah. It's a dark cloud hanging over you.
It is a dark. So like, just imagine a room with an elephant, with a cloud, with the weight on your back, just everything at the same time, right? How did that feel at the time? Were you happy you still got the degree? Was that joy of graduation clouded by like, I won, but at what cost, you know? Well, you know the exact amount of the cost. It was $50K.
This cost.
And what advice would you have to people in the same boat?
Yeah. So I'll touch on my experience. So my experience was, I felt like it was a dark cloud for sure. I knew that I needed to pay this off, or that's the plan that I had set for myself. I wanted to pay it off as quickly as possible. Around graduation time, I didn't, ultimately, like my parents were happy. Everyone was happy, the first kid to finish school. So I wasn't really thinking about the debt. It really hit me when I got the envelope in the mail and the email that said, "This is the amount of money that you owe."
Well, real quick before you keep going, I just wanted to say when we met in our last year, we didn't talk about debt right away. We talked about money, but not debt. So I know it wasn't that present on your mind yet because you were still finishing school. So when all of a sudden it came up, I was like, oh, like this is big on your mind.
This is serious, yeah.
But it wasn't like
serious.
It wasn't like obviously he kept it because I can imagine like after you guys start dating, it's like, well, just in case you didn't know.
That's the thing.
Just so you know.
It wasn't in the not telling me way. That's what I was saying. Like we talked about tons of stuff. It just I don't even think it was on your mind. You were just still finishing school.
Yeah.
Like it was like a flip switched. And then he told me exactly what it was in his plan pretty quickly after.
Yeah. But I also feel like the assumption though is that just because student loans are so common nowadays that I feel like it's almost assumed that someone probably has some sort of student loan debt,
It's not a
you
shocker.
don't know how much, but you just assume, I guess. But yeah, I feel like for a lot of people, you got to lock in with whatever it is that it is that you want to do in terms of your plan. I feel like I feel like ultimately, no matter what anyone says, it's really hard to tell someone who's in the midst of paying off their debt that it's really hard to tell them that a few years from now or however many years from now,
okay.
things are going to be great, because at the end of the day, they don't want to hear that. Like I didn't want to hear that, because you're just in it, you know?
Yeah.
But I feel like if you have a solid plan on how you're tackling the debt, whether you're going to do it like me, where I paid it off right away as quickly and as aggressively as possible, or if you're going to take a more slower approach to doing it and, you know, kind of still live life. Because for me, I wasn't really living a life at all during those couple years.
Would you do it differently if you could again? So again, actually, let me expand that a bit.
Okay.
The first part, would you get a degree again?
Would I get a degree again?
If you had the chance to, but with that debt, and second part is paying off the debt. Would you do it as aggressively, or would you enjoy life a bit more?
Would I get a degree again? I would 100% get a degree again. I think the experiences that my degree allowed me to gain are really invaluable and have kind of shaped who I am. And I think I also grew a lot in the process of getting my degree. And obviously, you know, you can grow in many different types of ways. You don't need to spend $50,000 to go to grow, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, like once again, it's not like we had this vision of like, okay, we're going to be content creators in the future.
Yeah.
So for me, in order to progress in the path that I was trying to progress in, I needed this degree. You know, so I guess that's the first question.
Yeah.
What
And
was the other
the second one was, would you pay it off as aggressively, or
Would I
would
pay
you?
it? Okay. I would do the exact same thing. I feel like ripping off the Band-Aid. What are you gonna
I'm
say?
laughing because I'm
What are
like,
you gonna say?
I knew, I was wondering what he was going to say, because I know his answer is that he would do the exact same thing. Doesn't mean you'd necessarily recommend it to other people to be that aggressive with it, but he's not really, with any goal, you're not really able to do both. Like this is the goal right now. This is
Tunnel
what I'm
vision,
doing right now. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you
I'm
were
kinda-
having fun, you would just would have been more upset.
Yeah, I feel like I'm kind of like I'm an all or nothing type of
Yeah.
person. So, you know, that kind of works for me. But I also understand that not everyone is that way.
Okay.
For me, I would 100% pay it off as aggressively as I did, just because it allowed me to, you know, move on to the next phase of my life quickly.
Okay.
But for other people, I think, you know, maybe a more phased approach might be better.
That makes sense. that makes sense. YouTube,
Yes.
YT. Congrats on 100K, by the way.
Thank you.
That was big this year.
That is huge. 100,000 people.
It felt
Not-
big, actually.
Not watching videos, subscribe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is
Locked
huge.
in.
What was the first emotion? Were you guys at the counter like 999? Yeah.
Actually, the night before it happened, I was like, oh, it's going to happen overnight. Like, I want to be awake for it. And I was like, I'm going to get up early.
It's like,
and
babe, we're
hopefully...
pulling an all-nighter.
Well, I was like, I didn't even tell him I did this, but I set an alarm for like 7 in the morning. And it was like 4 people away. I was like, yes. So then I stayed up and I was like,
She's like, yes,
screenshotting.
we're not 100K. Imagine her been excited we didn't get 100K yet.
Yeah. No, I was not excited. I was excited.
Oh,
and then
yeah.
I got the like 999 screenshot and the 100. So then when he woke up 2 hours later, he's like, oh, it happened overnight. I'm like, yeah, I was up. Got the screenshot. Like, I was excited. And it's funny because we had bursts of growth and then slower growth at times. So we had a lot of anticipation of it coming. It's not like it happened so fast, but it still was really exciting when it happened. You don't get a lot of like tangible validation in this type of job, right? Everything you're doing is for yourself. So when there is something tangible, it is exciting. It's like
it was really exciting, especially when you get the actual
the plaque.
100K plaque.
Yeah, I saw
like
that.
That is like
It's like so that's like
it's a dream
in sports. That's like the
yeah,
It's a trophy.
yeah, you got the cup.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
So I feel like that really solidified just, you know, we're clearly doing great things. We're reaching as many people as we can, which is our goal. And yeah, like we notice from the comments all the time that, you know, people are taking actions because of our videos, which is amazing.
Did you guys like look over, just dust it a bit extra, you know, sometimes in the morning, just like pat it
Just
a
a little
bit.
bit. You know, I feel like we're both like this, which is funny. I am a big celebrate the wins person, but we also are kind of like on to the next.
Yeah.
So we're excited. We were really excited. We have like our pictures of it and we have the plaque and everything, but we're kind of like, okay, now what are we doing next? And we are both like that.
Yeah.
I just celebrate. I make us celebrate.
She does make
He wouldn't
celebrate.
celebrate too
I
much.
probably would celebrate less if it wasn't for Steph. But
Or like his version of celebrating is only the big wins, and I'm like, I like small wins, but then I move on to the next.
Yeah, I would say 100K is a big win for sure.
Yeah.
yeah.
How did that decision come about? What did you? I know you spoke a bit about like you were already recording.
Mhm.
You like love talking. Like a lot of like, it seemed like the pieces were there.
Mhm.
But when did you like put the pieces together and say, okay, we're gonna do this for real?
Yeah. Well, again, with us, we're pretty planned people. So we had hit a certain amount of money that we had made from YouTube on the side that we never touched. Like we didn't pay ourselves that money at all. It was just
Yep.
building up in this joint bank account. And then we hit the amount where you have to start charging tax, which was like, oh, that's a big deal. So we got an accountant, we incorporated our business. We did all these things before quitting our jobs. A lot of people don't do that, but we like wanted to feel somewhat stable. So we had an accountant, business bank account, we're paying like charging tax. We had brand deals already at this point and all that. But we weren't making even close to what our 2 salaries would be. But we're like, we're not going to unless we have more time to pour into it. And then, like I said, once I made the decision, I was like, you'd already had it in your mind. And once I was like, yep, let's do it, it was done.
Well, I was going to say in January of that year, we created a roadmap
Yeah.
to us quitting.
Oh.
So
Yes.
what do we need to do by February, by
Yep.
April, June, whatever?
Mm.
What do we need to do in order to make this actually a viable thing for us to quit? Like,
Yeah.
For it to make sense for us.
Yeah. And it was still a jump, but we had more in place than I think some people do before making the jump. Less than like risk averse, but more the people who are super risky.
I'm also curious, the decision to actually start YouTube, how did that come about? Like, again, you've mentioned what I said about the pieces being there, but like the decision to like say, we're going to put out YouTube videos as a couple. What was that conversation and decision like? Because I am a big, like, I find it interesting just how like decisions change our lives. Because I feel like life is just a series of decisions, if that makes sense. Like in everything, from like the coffee you're going to get to like the job you're going to take to like where you go on vacation, you're picking a different trajectory of your life, if that makes sense. So how did that decision come about?
It's interesting too, because some decision points, you're really aware that it's a big deal, right? Am I going to live here or here? It's a big deal. Am I going to do this job or this job? Starting YouTube wasn't one of those. It was just like, we're doing our jobs. Let's do something fun on the side. And we are one of those couples that are together a lot. We hang out a lot. We like hanging out together. So when he started wanting to film stuff, I'm like, me too. I bought a camera too, so like I can join. Like that was kind of how that started. People do ask that, right? Like as a couple, why did you start doing it together? I don't even think we decided are we going to do it together or not. We just did it.
It was like organic.
Yeah. Like we just started doing it together. Like I wasn't like, can I do it with you or anything? Or do you want to do it? No, we just started doing it together. And then natural like division of duties over time. Topic wise, it came from us. I don't know who suggested the topics first, but we had a few things we knew we wanted to talk about that like salary negotiation, renting our first place, conversations we were having with friends that we became the friends that other people would go to because they knew we were open about money or like salary topics and stuff. So that kind of just evolved in that way. And at first it was just fun until we started getting some subscribers. We're like, oh, like we could make this serious.
Like, this is serious.
We could become serious.
What subscriber number was your? Oh, you know, like the like what was that subscriber number?
It's so funny. Yeah,
I was gonna say funny story. So there was other creators that we used to look at, and I remember distinctly looking at this one channel who had stopped making videos. Like it had been like a year until they had from their last video, and they had 2,000 subscribers. And I remember telling Steph, like, come here, look at this. They have 2,000 subscribers.
That's so many.
Like that's amazing. You know, like I just remember being so excited. I don't know how much we had. We had like maybe like 400, maybe. Like,
I think 250 was around the time of this, and we're like 2,000. That's insane. Why would they stop? But it's so funny. But yeah, like it was only like 250. It was when at first we were getting every subscriber at the beginning. It's extremely exciting. But once we hit about 250, we stopped growing a few every week. Like it was just sitting there, and we're like, oh, but it's so funny. You have 250 people like. At the time, that feels like a lot of people. That's 250 people. And so, and we're like, okay, we need to catapult this more. This is the classic. It works for us the way we work. I'm like okay, how can we every week grow a little bit more? What's the slow and steady approach? What can we do? We sign up for a YouTube course. We're going to post 2 videos a week, all that. He's like, what research can I do to find a big break opportunity? So we had both going on. We started posting every twice a week. We started being really serious on it. But at the same time, he was like applying to be on these different channels and stuff and get featured to get more eyes. And so it was a combo of both that really started our channel growth. Posting frequently on specific topics, so like niching down, that helped. And then we got featured on a CNBC video.
That was that was
big.
In quote, big break.
It was, yeah. We went from, we had grown ourselves to 3,000. So from 250 to 3,000 over like a few months from our own slow growth approach, which was cool. But then we grew from 3,000 to like 15,000 in one day from that feature.
Which was
big at the time. Yeah.
That's like, I think where most people saw you first.
Yeah.
And
people still mention it.
Yeah. And I think recently that the video came up on my feed. I'm like,
nice.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And that's like very, very like one of those things that you almost have to keep like the actual video file to like, remember.
Make sure you have it.
Oh yeah.
I think one thing that sets you guys apart from a lot of other YouTubers or like even finance YouTubers, or maybe, people have like followed your trend, is transparency. And I think that's a big thing, because I always joke that people are nosy.
They are.
People are really nosy.
People are really, really nosy.
They love to be nosy.
Which is why social media is so like it's popular, because people want to know what's going on in other people's lives, right? You spoke about Casey Neistat and like his vlogs and stuff. Like, oh, that's what he does on a daily basis. When you combine that nosiness with your transparency and also money, and people are extra nosy about money,
they
right?
are, because people aren't talking, but they're curious.
Exactly. How did you guys manage to be so transparent? And did that take some getting used to?
I actually feel like that's a good question, because it goes back to our like similarities and differences again. He shameless, no shyness, no embarrassment. Like maybe I don't know, maybe it is a little hard for you, but I don't think so. I think he's just whatever he has to do to get it done.
So why is that? Because I think that's the biggest thing. A lot of people have that fear of, forget even talking about your money, just being on YouTube. Like why didn't you care, or why don't you care about like what people think as much?
I mean, the way that I looked at it is that I used to watch and still watch people sharing things online. So what's the difference between me and them? Nothing.
Just confidence.
So is it that like they're not better than I am or worse than I am, so why can't I do it also?
Yeah, and it's kind of how we look at money too. Like we're not better than you.
Yes.
The person at the bank who's using all these big words, they're not better than you either, right?
Yeah.
Like,
and you just had that in you. I feel like you did.
Yeah, like I don't know.
I was just gonna say I was the opposite though. Like for me, it was hard. I never wanted to be shy, but I've always had to break out of it, right? So when we started even posting on YouTube at all, he had to edit the videos. You naturally would have been better anyway, but I couldn't even hear my voice back, right? Like like cringing at myself. Finally get used to it. Okay, cool. The CNBC Make It thing, I was so nervous. Like it's also, my parents are pretty private, so opening up about me is opening up about them. Like they've had to get used to stuff about them being shared, right?
True.
And so there's all those different pieces. So I always was willing to do it, always. And that's what I would always tell him. Don't worry, I'll do it, but I have to freak out first and like maybe shed a tear and then I can do it. But that was my thing first. But I always wanted to. Like I felt the same way. It was just harder to get there.
Yeah.
And it was getting over myself a bit too. Like one of the biggest lessons I've learned is whether people hate you or love you, it's the same thing, because they don't really know you. So you can't like be like, oh, they said something positive about me, so I'll take that as fact. They said something negative. Oh, they don't know me. Both are true. Like the person who likes you doesn't know you either. You have to stay steady in yourself the whole time.
It's like the don't get too high, don't get too low.
Exactly.
Kind of thing,
And so I think that was the bigger thing. But for me, like what expedited me being pushed to do that is you being so like, who cares? Just do it. He doesn't really entertain it. Like
if this is our goal, if this is what we want to do, if this is what we believe is like meant for us, then let's do it.
Okay.
There's no.
And a big part of that, I guess, is also not taking yourself too seriously. Because I think that holds a lot of people back in terms of like, I think what you said, you alluded to, but like, in the end, what is the big deal? Like, I'm me. It is who I am, right? Yeah. But again, it's a lot easier said than done, by the way.
Well, I think that helps me too, is I am motivated by feeling like I'm actually doing something helpful or impactful. You know this, I actually am. So if you got to pitch it to me like, being transparent about money will help people. Okay. Like it actually really will. Okay. Not a lot of people are. Okay, I can do that. I can be the person that's going to be transparent because it's going to help people. Like that helps me be motivated.
I also feel like growing up, I had a lot of questions that I never got answers to. You know, I just, whether it's money wise, right? Like you're growing up, you see certain people who quote unquote have money. How? Like
Yeah.
how?
I love that. It's
Right?
like, he has money.
How'd that happen?
How do you have money?
They're like, oh,
Right?
I don't know.
Like I used to ask people like, what does your dad or what does your mom do for work?
Mm.
You know,
We're both curious
how much money do they make?
in that
Mm.
way.
You know,
Oh.
like people aren't gonna answer, but
Yeah.
Right?
But that's what we are. We're gonna answer. We'll share it, Yeah.
That's really good. And in terms of working together, how does
Yeah.
that work? I'm really curious about this because I find that especially with romantic partners,
yeah,
working together, being together is one thing, working together is another thing, right? And if you guys have if people have different working styles,
Yeah.
it gets very tough
Mhm.
because you love the person, you care for the person, but they piss you off.
Yep.
So I want to know about your working dynamic. Do you guys have rules? Do you have systems? Are you just working on vibes? Like how do you make it work?
People are always really curious
Yeah.
about this one.
I feel like we've gotten to a place where we really know, like, first of all, how the other person works, how the other person, likes to receive, I don't know, questions or criticisms, like that kind of thing.
It's really evolved because it's actually great answering this question now because I feel like we've hit our stride. Like we are in a good place. First, because it's been just over 2.5 years full time. The first, like I was I went into it like, this will be fine. We'll figure it out. Everything's good. Whoa, like it is hard.
Yeah.
And the first like year and a half at least it's hard because you have your idea of setting things up, but then and like who's gonna do what role, whatever. But you also have to go with the flow, especially in what we do. It's not
You have
very
to go with the flow.
yeah. Like when we quit our job, we were only on YouTube. Even now, we're on all these different platforms. Now we have different income streams we didn't have before. Like all these things change, so you have to go with that too. Biggest thing is definitely communication and getting on like the same page. And I think I always did this too. Is like, hey, we have the same goal. Like this is what I always tell him. I'm on your team. Other than you, I'm the most on your team. Like we are working to the same thing. No one wants it more than you.
Yeah.
And once you build up trust in each other and you gain the trust by communicating constantly about the goals and what we're picturing. But it's been a balancing act too, right? Because we actually talked about this the other day. I feel like us being in a relationship helps the business stuff because we both are driving to the same thing.
Yes.
But it can be harder on the relationship sometimes because you have to find the balance of personal and professional, like the business stuff. So it's been a journey, but it feels nice being further in.
It feels really good now. I would say I was going back to me being like all or nothing. It's kind of hard for you to be the all or nothing person, and then all of a sudden like expect that from your partner when that's not how they operate or how they receive things. It just doesn't really make sense.
So for those starting out on YouTube or growing smaller channels, so two-part. What do you think work for you guys that you haven't already mentioned? We mentioned transparency. We mentioned like a few things, but what worked for you that you haven't mentioned? And what advice do you have for those sort of like starting their own channel, like growing like small channels, which might actually be harder than starting a channel sometimes?
I feel like the first thing you need to understand is that your first, and I'm sure they might have heard this, but your first set of videos doesn't matter.
You're going to hate them no matter what.
You're going to hate them. You're going to think they're awful. And they're probably not going to get the eyes that you think they're going to get. So don't let that stop you from upload.
And then the other thing too is like, unless you get lucky, you're not going to have a burst of growth early on. So you need to keep building your community as you go. Small amount of subscribers or views can still have a very engaged community. So keep that engagement, keep it going throughout. That's something for us we really learned that's important. Like whenever we've stopped engaging, which hasn't happened lately, but early on, you kind of lose those people. You want to keep them on your journey and just keep going. Again, go put stuff out, even if you feel like you hate it. You'll make small changes over time and just don't stop. You'll regret it more if you stop.
The idea of vanity metrics is a really big one. So vanity metrics being, yes, it would be amazing to have like 100K subscribers, whatever, 1 million. But ultimately, the engagement that's below that is far more important than the actual vanity of this big number.
And it's important for sponsorships too, even. They might get pulled in by your vanity metrics, but they're going to stay if you have an engaged community.
So it's actually about people engaging. That's the most important thing, basically.
Yeah.
I want to talk a bit about the difficulties of running a YouTube channel. What roadblocks have you run into? What has been hard for you? So just talk me through like the hard parts of growing a channel to 100,000 subscribers.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think ultimately what some people might not understand is that being a content creator is running a small business. So there's a lot of like small business headaches that you need to do behind the scenes that most people might not see, whether it be, tax time and, having a system for managing the money if you're not someone who is incorporated and you have your own corporation. There's just a lot that goes behind the scene that's more admin that people don't see.
Yeah.
And I think it just adds.
Because over time you want to stay consistent, but you care more about quality. So every video you make takes more time to make, and that can be hard. And then, yes, you're balancing all the behind the scenes. Maybe you're on other platforms. Maybe you're doing your website, like whatever it is. So it's making sure you're actually getting something out there consistently, because that's important.
Yeah.
In terms of what you're working on now, what are you working on now, and what's next for you guys? What should we be looking forward to? Those that have the notification bell on and stuff. What are we looking forward to, YouTube wise, life wise?
Yeah, I feel like this year is a good year for us. Like, we're really focused. Last year was kind of like a rebuilding, figuring out what we want to do next. We've been really consistent with our content. We're really focused on the money basics, investing basics, getting people started on their journey. That's big from our content. And then also sharing more of our lives on the side. We kind of are doing a balance of both. We're also working on coming out with an investing course, which is really exciting.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So the course is called Simple Investing for Canadians. The idea is to get you from zero to your first $100,000 invested. So, and it's also for anyone who's in between, right? Like, I know there's a lot of us out there who start investing, but don't know whether we're doing the right thing. The idea is for you to, take the course, and it's more so a self-paced thing that you can do on the side that is, an extra to all the free content that we do on our pages.
Yeah. And we've been wanting to do something like this for a while, but we really want to make sure it has good value and is actually useful to people. And there's a lot of different information out there, but this is something that you can get all in one spot. It's going to be straightforward. We focus on passive investing. You also see what we do, so it mirrors that as well. So we're really excited about that. That's been a lot of our behind the scenes work. That's really what we're entrenched in right now. So we've been definitely more work focused this year doing all of that. We're pretty proud that we've stayed consistent with our content, and then also we're doing this behind the scenes because it's like added on something new. But yeah, a little more business day to day in the last few months.
Yeah, it's something that our community has asked from us. And they consistently ask us, do you guys have something that I can do that's more so like together in one place, right?
And I was just going to say, and we have a wait list right now too. So for anyone who has been asking and wants to stay up to date, we have the wait list, and hopefully
how
soon.
can they find the course?
Yes. So on our website, stephandden.com, just redid it. It's a nice fresh look so that the wait list is on there. And eventually we'll share the course there too. Hopefully really soon. We're working on it.
I can attest to the website. It's amazing.
Yay.
Any regrets or things you would have done differently?
In life?
I know it's a deep question, but YouTube, life, because obviously real people watch this. So any regrets or just things that you feel like, if I could do it again, I would have done something different?
I mean, I'm gonna be honest. I tried to live my life without, having the regret lens. I take anything that comes as negative, or not the most, positive thing that comes as just an opportunity to learn and just kind of move forward and keep it pushing.
Yeah, I was going to say, I want to avoid what ifs whenever possible. I feel like that's the only main thing I'd ever regret is if I looked back and had a what if. So that was us quitting our jobs was big. Anything I know I want to do, I'm like, okay, if I really want to do it, I want us to do it, because otherwise I'll have a what if we didn't. So that's a big thing. I think the only thing regret wise, it's minor, but it's especially now that I've gotten to this place where I'm pretty confident in what we put out there. When people say rude things on the internet, we've actually got a compliment recently that I love it so much. They said, I love the way you reply back to rude comments, which I was like, yes, that's my goal. Because I reply back in like a very funny way. Like if someone's really rude, I'll be like, good one, winky face. Or like, thanks so much. Just trying to keep it positive too. Because even though we talk about money and it's very like specific to that, you still get personal things sometimes. So yeah, I regret early on being so like putting too much stock into that. But also I don't regret it because it's growth.
It's part of the journey.
Yeah, it's
right?
growth. Happy I'm there now.
I'm curious if you guys have like, if you lost like friends along the way, or like how has like success also changed?
That's a good question.
Changed like your life day to day, people around you, are people like weirder around you? Like, basically, how has the success so far affected your lives?
I love that you asked that, because even you saying the success, like people's view of you is different than the reality, right?
sure.
So like, yeah, we do feel successful in many ways, but also we're like nowhere near a lot of the other goals we have. We're just, and overall, even though we are successful in what we've built, we're still living regular day-to-day lives. But people put on their perception onto you, whether that's positive or negative. Again, I feel like you felt it more than me directly from people, like telling you, man, you're living the dream, or like whatever it might be.
Yeah, I've definitely gotten a lot of feedback from, different friends where, they, I don't know, like their mentality around what we do is just, it's either really positive or just really negative. So yeah, I've definitely lost some friends along the way.
It's almost like a filter, like a filter, if that makes sense. Like people have like almost chosen a side of like how they feel about what you do.
Yeah, well, I also feel like people who knew us, the way that I look at it is that if you knew me before, like YouTube,
you don't know you now.
You should,
like this is a different. Then it's different now.
Knew me, but I feel like I feel like nothing has changed. Like you should treat me the same way.
Easy example is like when people who've known him his whole life call him Den, that didn't meet him as Den. Like they call him Dennis, and now they call him Den. He's like, oh, why are you calling me my stage name?
It feels weird.
Stage name. I love that. It's like, why are you calling me my stage name?
But if you met him as that, then it's chill. It's chill. Yeah. But whereas I'm just Steph all the time.
Yeah, like if you've been calling me Dennis for the last
20 years.
15 years, 20 years, like
it's like now, like
you're changing up.
What happened? Right? You're the one switching up, not me.
It's cool though too, because I feel like we're pretty like we've always moved forward. So we've made so many good friends too. You guys are some of those. You're one of those friends.
Yes,
We've truly met a lot of really cool people from doing what we do, and I think that's the biggest thing. You have to alter your expectations of people, because some people are just never going to understand what you do. That's fine. You either choose to keep them in your life in a different way or not, and then you have to surround yourself with people who do get what you're doing. And
I think the reality of content creation too is also understanding that like your friends and your family might not be your target audience, right? So ultimately, like we'll have conversations with friends sometimes, and it's money related, and they'll tell us about other people in the space and how they're so amazing and so great.
That's
we should consider checking them out, right? Like
I feel like that's what I've run into more is friends who are like trying to give me thoughts on advice, or like I'm like, oh, like that kind of hurt, but I know you didn't mean to. But like, that's fine.
I saw a video the other day of some guy. He's a content creator, but he was just ranting about how it's the people closest to you that almost support you last.
Yeah,
if that makes sense. As when other people give you validation that they're like, oh, maybe what you're doing is actually
like,
cool, right? Which sucks, but it is what it is.
Yeah.
We're gonna get into some fun stuff real quick. Well, quick fun stuff. We're gonna have a quick fire couples quiz, and then like a quick fire just individual.
Okay.
All right. These are
I'm more of a quick fire person.
Don't be nervous. Don't worry. The next few questions is more who's more likely.
That's fun.
And
I don't know if you've ever done one.
Yeah, I want to know. I want to know your answers. Some might be a bit contentious. Who amongst you guys is more likely to give their money to charity? All their money to charity?
All their money? That's different than give their money. All their money is me.
I can tell you it's not me.
Yeah, that's me.
It's not me.
But a lot of that goes back to It goes back to backgrounds too, though, right? Because Dennis is building for his family, whereas I'm like, oh, like I've had whatever it is that I've had, and I want to care about other people. So it's just different experiences. But it's funny when we are making our money together.
In your videos, you guys do a lot of role playing and acting. Who's the better actor?
Oh, you.
Ooh, okay.
I'm better at memorizing lines. But if we were actually trying to act, you'd be better.
I'll take it. I'll take it.
I'm good at memorizing things.
So is he like a diva that forgets his lines and is like, you guys are not paying me enough for this?
Yeah. I don't know. I feel like you're just in the moment with it. So I'll be like, no, it's supposed to be said in this tone. He's like, I'm going to say it how I want. I'm like, no, but a few lines later, it mattered that it was like this,
It's method acting stuff.
Yeah.
You don't get it. It's the real pros. The real
See,
pros
a real pro.
Who's more likely to blow all their money on an impulse buy?
I think that's also me. Yeah. Okay. But I'm not that impulsive either, but if it's one of us, that's going to be
It's more likely, so I guess it's relative. Anyways.
More likely, Steph.
Who's better at keeping secrets?
Ooh. From each other, neither of us. I feel like we're like the tell each other whatever.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Because it's probably you.
Yeah, you think so? Okay.
Probably better.
I was going to say me, but I wasn't sure.
Steph is like, it's me. It's me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like even growing up, like I really
Oh,
like
yeah.
drama. I really like the
Yes.
I really like
I would not.
You're right.
I would not have guessed that.
I would describe myself as a good friend. Like I'm not gonna blow your
for
secret.
lack of a better
Yeah.
term, like I liked being a shit disturber, you know, just
like a bit messy, you know.
like just be behind the scenes.
You're right,
like,
it's me.
Just like pour flame, then step
Yes,
back.
yes,
Yeah.
yes, exactly.
I get that. So it is.
Yeah,
Steph.
it's me.
Who dies first in a zombie apocalypse?
Me.
Ooh, Steph.
100%.
Except he always says he would hate to be with me if it was a zombie apocalypse because he would die first because he'd have to protect me. But he knows that I would bring him down.
But the black guy always dies first.
Yes,
right?
that's big.
So maybe you.
Yeah.
In terms of actual survival skills, though, I would die first. Right?
Some people also would just be like, I don't want to do with this. Just tell the zombie, like, you know, to get a bite.
I tend to freeze.
If you
know?
can't beat them, join them, right?
There you go.
Who's tidier?
Tidy or me?
Steph.
Okay.
Steph's tidy.
That was quick.
Oh, yeah.
Who buys better gifts?
Ooh.
Ooh. We'll give it to Steph.
Okay.
Definite. What are you
Me,
gonna say?
but he's gotten very good at giving gifts because he's very thoughtful. Like I always, at any time there's a time to give a gift, I at least ask him to write me a card because he writes really good cards. He's very good at that stuff. But in general, I just care. I really like giving gifts.
Yeah. She has more experience.
Okay. That's a good cop out for you.
That's hilarious.
Who's most stubborn?
That's you.
Me. That's me. That's
Yeah.
me for sure.
Yeah.
And I would say I'm
Definitely
stubborn.
me.
Like to my parents, I'm stubborn, but between us, he's more stubborn.
Yeah.
And is it like a silent stubborn? Like,
No,
No.
he's loud stubborn.
No. I mean,
Like I'll be like, listen, like you said no to this before you even heard it out because you just want, and now you want to stick to it because you said it. You know,
just like a pre-no.
yeah,
Like,
so you can change your mind. You know,
Let's get that out the way.
yeah.
I think you answered this earlier, but who's more thoughtful?
Thoughtful. Steph. Steph is more thoughtful.
Sorry, I didn't create these questions for her, by the way. I wasn't trying to just like make you look bad, but it seems
Well,
like
we're again, this is like us being similar but kind of different. I'd say I'm more thoughtful, but you're a thoughtful person
Yeah.
too, but only about things he cares about. If it's something he cares about or you're someone he cares
That
about,
sounds
he's very
so
thoughtful.
bad, by the way. Only about the
I actually
But things
think
you care about is like your family and
Yeah.
stuff. Like
Yes,
he's
yes.
very like
Yes.
I think
cares
that's
about
a
his
good
family.
thing.
Yes.
If you care about too much,
Yeah.
it's not sustainable.
Yes, that
I
is him.
promise you. And
Yeah.
every empath will tell you that.
True.
Yeah.
Who is funnier?
Who's funnier?
I have an answer. Different types of funny.
Okay.
I'm funny to laugh at. Like I'm goofy.
Mm.
Like you'll laugh at funny things I did,
Mhm.
and I'm like, why are you laughing at me? Like that type of thing.
Mhm.
Whereas you'll like are more intentionally funny.
Yes.
Like you have jokes.
Like he'll put a joke together.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Whereas he probably laughs at me more than I, laugh
I
at him.
at her all the time.
Mm.
Yeah.
That's funny thing.
Yeah.
That's
But
a
not on
good way.
purpose.
And finally, this gets controversial, but who snores more?
I would say him. But he doesn't actually snore.
No. There's no way. There's no way.
I like to tell him he snores and he's like, I don't snore.
That I will get up in the middle of the night
And I'll be snoring
I
apparently.
will record on my iPhone just so you know that you
I am. We both talked in our sleep before actually. But we're okay. We're both not
Yeah.
big snorers, basically.
Yeah.
The reason I find that question is similar to the whole like pouring a bit of gas to like light a
Yeah.
fire, because no one
wants to
you
say they
snore
snore.
when you sleep.
Yeah.
So like there's no way for you to know,
You're right.
but everyone is still defensive. So it's like, you know,
You're right. Why are we defensive about that?
right?
Why are we defensive about
It's
that?
like you don't even know, right?
That's so funny.
Yeah, I find that hilarious. So this is quick fire now.
Okay.
Let's try and make it as quick
Okay.
fire as
Okay.
possible.
Snap.
Favorite Toronto restaurant? You could also answer separately or together.
Buddy Ollie's.
And
But yeah.
pie.
Pie.
Love pie.
That's Thai, right?
Thai food, yeah.
Favorite Toronto neighborhood?
Bloor West.
Mm.
That's where I grew up.
Recently, I've been liking like Ossington area, I would say.
Yeah.
Nice. Biggest purchase you ever made?
The couch. That was my biggest one, I think. Right?
Degree for you, I guess.
Degree.
Oh.
Yeah. I'm like, I don't know. Yeah. The debt.
Nice. Your favorite travel destination or favorite city in the world?
Yes. Recently we went to Barcelona, Spain. Really loved Barcelona.
Mm.
Yeah, I like those too. To make it different, Granada, Spain as well.
Mhm.
Still Spain, but
Mhm.
different city.
Yeah. I
That was
love
really fun.
Barcelona is amazing.
Yeah.
Favorite YouTuber or YouTube channel?
Ooh.
Wow. You go.
Okay, I'm gonna go with Aika Wong, Aika and Dimitri. She used to be in Big Brother Canada. I met her last year. Aika, if you're listening,
Mm.
my favorite YouTuber.
Yeah. I'm going to go Okay, I'll go Jermaine and Trey Richards.
Mm.
They're like local Toronto. I guess they're like comedians and sketch comedy guys.
Yeah.
Yeah,
They're really funny.
yeah.
Let's go check them out. Best YouTube video you ever made, and this is process, not results. Because results we could see it.
I know
but-
your favorite.
The best one has to be what do we call it?
This video will change your life.
This video will change your life. So this video, like the amount of emotion that went into this, just because this video is like the story of my life. So, you know, all the way from Kenya, eventually like being here, meeting Steph, and just where I am today. I feel like there's a lot of people that can resonate with that video, and I love it. I love the way it turned out.
Like a mini biopic, right? Like
exactly.
I'll echo that one.
Yeah, same answer.
Yeah, it was fun. It was a fun one to be behind the scenes, and
Yeah.
I know how much he loves that video too, so it's nice. Other than that, I feel like recently documenting the journey to saving up my first 100K, that one was pretty exciting, and that one
Very exciting video.
recent, so that one was fun too.
Huge
really-
milestone.
Really good. Favorite company you've worked with or brand deal you've had?
Good question. We really like working with CDIC, which is Canada Deposit Insurance Corporation. They're awesome. They were our first ever brand deal, so I think that's why. And we still work with them to this day. We've worked with them so many times on so many videos. They're a free resource that helps all Canadians, so that's cool.
I'm gonna echo that. They're they're so lovely to work with.
Yeah.
And finally, if you could change one thing about YouTube, what would it be?
I wish it was just easier to find your target audience. Like, we know there's people out there who would love our channel and would be helped by our videos that just haven't seen them yet, right? That it hasn't come across. So I feel like that's an easy one, but
Yeah. That's such a great answer. I don't even.
That's
such a great
take your
answer.
time, because I feel like you might have like a different answer.
yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like you think about this. Do you think about this a lot? Maybe. Do you guys think about this a lot?
Well, yeah, what I just said we've thought about before,
Definitely
for
thought
sure.
about that.
Yeah.
So right now, the way that it works on YouTube is that long form videos, so like really long videos, are separate from short form videos. So it's just tough because the two don't merge, right? So if you have YouTube Shorts, if those are really doing well and they're reaching a lot of people, it unfortunately, as of right now, doesn't really translate into your
main channel,
main longer form videos.
A surface level one working off of that is just if you got paid more for short form views.
That's-
We get a lot of views on our short form, but they pay less than the long one.
YouTube, if you're listening,
Yeah. Pay us out.
Pay them more. Final questions we like to do. It's 2 questions. The first is like when you're back here in X amount of years and you've made it. What does that look like?
I like that one. You want to go?
One of the guests, for him, was just a house
Yeah.
on a beach with a nice kitchen. That's all he said.
I was going to say,
Well,
I
he
have
could
my answer for
entertain.
you.
Yeah, I think for me, I'll know that I've quote unquote made it when I can play a bigger part in my family's life, whether it be financially, but also time wise. So really having the freedom to go see them and just be around them as much as possible. I think that would be amazing. And then just financially for me, like my ultimate goal is just to help my family. And yeah.
Something he always says he wants one day is to have a private chef at all times. And we'll know we've made it if you have a private chef, because before we get that, he'll have made sure he helped his family. So that'll have already happened. And then we'll have the chef. And then that
That's
means,
the pinnacle.
yeah, that means all that's already happened.
I like that. I do talk about having a private chef a lot.
Yes.
Yeah.
You know,
Yes.
I just, it's not even from like a time perspective.
Yeah.
It's just, I just want to eat good food.
Good.
That is literally
I
good.
just
food.
want good food.
I love that.
Yeah.
I do. I love that.
and not have to make it.
Yes.
That's
That's
it.
more important, actually.
For me, it's the same. I feel like it's looking back and at every time knowing that we have no what ifs.
Yeah.
We went down different paths that we wanted to. We explored every option. We had fun as we were doing it. And yeah, if you've made enough money to be able to have that value of time too and have a good balance. But I feel like we'll always be doing things, whether it's this for work or creatively, but it's having the time to choose what you're doing. I feel like that's
Yeah.
cool.
I love that. Family and time seem like the underlying topics there. The final question, and I would like you guys to answer separately.
Okay.
You guys can copy each other's answers. So if you go first, probably have an advantage. Just like
You can go
just
first.
letting you know. Who do you think will make a great guest for this show? And the caveat is you have to help us get them.
I would say Siobhan Salmon. Like
Yes.
Siobhan Salmon, for anyone who doesn't know, he's a very big tech YouTuber and he's based out of Toronto and he makes some of the best tech videos, but also some of the best lifestyle videos. And his journey is him coming from Jamaica and then, you know, being here. I'm pretty sure away from his family, but ultimately, like, he's built this channel that's just massive and he's really, really making waves.
I love his videos
in the space. Yeah,
that would be an amazing guest, but I guess the logistics will determine later. But that's a good answer.
We'll figure it out.
Yes, we'll figure it out.
We see him driving around in his purple cars, so he's in the city.
We'll figure it out, Steph.
You know, I don't like. I'm trying to like have something so good in my mind. I don't know. I might have to get back to you.
Okay.
You know, I'm really trying to think about it, but I'm trying to think of someone in a different space, like someone who's not even on YouTube and stuff, like that does something interesting. And I'm like, there's so many, but like,
Matt. That's a good example. The baker.
Oh, okay, yeah. This is actually interesting. So, Matt Duffy.
Yeah,
he is a baker. He has a small business. Yes, this is actually cool because he's been pretty pivotal in our journey recently. We met him at a Google event, YouTube event a few months ago, and he's the reason we started doing our newsletter recently, got into doing our website, just refocusing our business, just from one little conversation we had with him. He teaches at schools. He has his own small business where he does bakery. He has a bakery, not does bakery, and he makes sourdough bread and stuff. And he has his little kids. They have like his whole family's involved in the business. Yeah. He's in his 40s. Don't quote me, Matt, if I'm aging you. He's in his 40s, Matt. But he's just getting started in this creative side of life now. Like, it's just really cool to talk to people like that. Very business focused. We literally talked to him at this event for an hour and a half. He's a talker.
He is awesome. Like, he will talk your ear off. Like, and he's got so many great insights, but also from a different perspective. You know, like he was telling us how he started off as a private chef at some point, right? Like for different celebrities too, which is really interesting.
I love how excited Steph gets, and she's like, "I'm gonna eat up this mic."
She's like, "What?"
I forgot when we met him. He was telling us about how he, instead of going and sitting like in these really good, was it courtside tickets?
Oh yeah.
Instead of sitting courtside at the Raptors game, he came to this event to network. But he has courtside Raptors tickets because of some person they know from like the different work he's done, gives him a few tickets a year. Like, he just has some cool stories, I feel like.
That sounds very interesting.
Yeah, I actually think he would be a good
idea.
I
wonder who would be harder to get, he or Siobhan. We'll see.
I think he'd be down. I think we message him, he'd come do it.
Okay.
Yeah.
I trust you guys. But other than that, this has been amazing. I really enjoyed this.
Us too.
I honestly wish we could go on, but people are gonna close their tabs. But thank you so much, guys, for being here.
Thank you for having me.
This means a lot to me, and I hope when you're back here in X years, we have that private chef and we have all the time we need.
I love it.
Thank
you
for
so
having
much.
us.
No worries. Thank you.